Hey there, Demwins Media viewers. This is Matt Staub here. I want to cover something for you today that I'm sure many of you have heard about, but I want to walk through sort of what happened yesterday, step by step. What I'm talking about, of course, is the announcement that Trump and RFK and Dr. Oz made yesterday on Tylenol and their new recommendation that pregnant women do not use Tylenol during their pregnancy for fear of it causing autism. RFK Jr. earlier this year, just to set the stage, said that he was going to find out what the cause for autism was by September. There was no reason for the deadline, he said. It was just sort of this arbitrary deadline. And so we're reaching the end of September, and clearly RFK felt like he had to just come out with something. So they approached this announcement, by the way, with no new evidence. They basically just sort of repackaged existing evidence that, much of which is, of course, contrary to what the conventional scientific belief is, in order to sort of push this new recommendation. But there was no new research, no new findings or anything like that. They basically just did this because RFK wanted to meet this deadline he set for himself. So they held this conference, and it started with Trump saying this. It is a little hard to even understand what he's trying to say in the first place, but let's play that clip and talk about it on the other side.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
So he can't even pronounce the name acetaminophen correctly, but we are supposed to take the advice that he's making, completely unfounded as sound medical advice. I mean, what the administration has done here is ignore decades of medical understanding, particularly when it comes to the safety of Tylenol, when it comes to pregnant women using it to treat high fevers, but also the understanding of so much of what is behind the increase in autism diagnoses over the past couple decades. And that is the expanded definition of what autism is. In the past, so many cases of autism were only diagnosed if it was severe autism, things like nonverbal autism. But over the past couple of decades, autism has been, more encompassing in what people call the autism spectrum disorder, which is a much wider range of conditions that people kind of feel fall under, what could be characterized as autism, including Asperger's, for example, which Elon Musk has said publicly he has. Something like that decades ago might not have been diagnosed. So that is a huge part of why there have been more autism diagnoses over the past couple decades, not because pregnant women are using Tylenol. The next thing that Trump said at this conference is truly wild. I'm going to play the clip for you, but it is pretty shocking. Here we go.
This country is going through what parts of the world are going through. And I will say there are parts of the world that don't take Tylenol. I mean, there's a rumor, and I don't know if it's so or not, that Cuba, they don't have Tylenol because they don't have the money for Tylenol, and they have virtually no autism, okay? Tell me about that one. And there are other parts of the world where they don't have Tylenol, where they don't have autism. That tells you a lot.
Too much to unpack there. First of all, the whole idea that Cuba can't afford Tylenol is crazy. Second of all, Cuba can afford Tylenol. It is readily available. It is purchased by the government. It exists in government pharmacies. It is easy for people to access and take in Cuba. And by the way, according to studies, the prevalence of autism in Cuba is nearly identical to what it is in the United States, which is roughly around 80 in every 10,000 people. So not only does Tylenol exist in Cuba, their autism diagnoses rates are virtually on par with the United States. So that claim is completely false. He also made another wild claim that there's no autism in the Amish community either. I mean, there is obviously a reason behind that, which is the fact that, the Amish community, it does not utilize many traditional, American medicines or the healthcare system. And so because they have a distance from the American medical system, there isn't really a way to track what the prevalence is of autism in the Amish community. Or, if people have tracked it, it is still much lower than, any comprehensive studies that have done on the prevalence of autism in the United States. So, I think the next thing that was really troubling in this, that sort of gets to the core of why this whole press conference was so wrong, was when Trump was talking about the MMR vaccine. Let's take a look at that clip really quickly.
I also, and we've already done this, we want no mercury in the vaccine. We want no aluminum in the vaccine. The MMR, I think, should be taken separately. This is based on what I feel, the mumps, measles, and all the three should be taken separately. And it seems to be that when you mix them, there could be a problem. So there's no downside in taking them separately. In fact, they think it's better, so let it be separate.
You heard what he said there. This is how I feel. This is not science. This is personal speculation masquerading as scientific policy. It shouldn't matter what the president feels when a recommendation like this is made. It should be made because it's backed up by sound evidence and science, which obviously this was not. Meanwhile, in this press conference, you have Dr. Oz, who gets up, on the podium and starts talking about how the U.S. and the FDA is going to approve a new drug called leucovorin for the treatment of autism. Let's see what he says in that clip.
The FDA, based on NIH research, is approving prescription leucovorin for treatment of autistic children. Now, if you're following the script, there should be two questions that you have, two questions that should come to your mind. The first is, how will patients and parents get access to the treatment? I'll tell you how. Over half of American children are covered by Medicaid and CHIP, government health insurance, over half. And therefore, because they're covered in Medicaid and CHIP, upon this label change by Marty, state Medicaid programs in partnership with CMS will cover prescription leucovorin around the country. It's yours, but you have to go to a doctor to get a prescription because they know your child, they know you, and they know the medication. States will also have tools to monitor its use and ensure appropriate utilization. That's important for a bunch of reasons, because we want the right kids getting the right prescription medications. We believe private insurance companies will rapidly follow our lead if they have not already done so. And again, to make sure that this is safe and effective treatment, you need a physician to prescribe the medication because it's on prescription.
So you heard what he said, that they're going to, once this label change happens, it's going to be covered by CHIP and kids on Medicaid. There's an interesting part about this. And every time something like this happens with the administration, you always have to look out a little bit to see where the grift might be. And very conveniently, Dr. Oz is a stakeholder and a quote, global advisor for a supplement company called iHerb. iHerb has a huge market share in the US supplements market. And guess what iHerb sells? A version of leucovorin. I checked online because I was curious, and since yesterday, leucovorin is now sold out on iHerb's website. It's, I think, probably fair to believe that iHerb might become a pretty prominent seller of leucovorin in the coming months, and just leads you to wonder why. This decision overall, to push this out publicly was packaged like a medical breakthrough. But at the end of the day, the consensus in the medical community across the board is that acetaminophen remains safe as something for pregnant women to take to treat high fevers during pregnancy. And on the other hand, high fevers during pregnancy carry far greater risks in terms of potential harm to a baby or potential harm to a mother in a pregnancy. Those are far better documented risks than whatever sort of made up risk has come from this administration about using Tylenol for pregnancy. Medical experts across the board were kind of decried this decision and sort of mocked the administration for what they've done. The World Health Organization, the ministries for health in Italy and Germany and Spain all released statements. My favorite was a statement from the health secretary in the UK. I want to read this quickly for you. He basically said, his name is Wes Streeting, and he said, I would say just to people watching, don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine. I think that is a pretty fair thing to say. I think this is just a continued troubling trend with what we've seen between RFK and Donald Trump in this administration. They have no interest in the actual truth or the actual facts about this stuff. It is about their feelings on things. And at the end of the day, science and facts don't care about your feelings. And this was not medical leadership. This was just showmanship to meet a deadline with a little bit of a grift thrown in. That is it for us today. Thank you so much for joining. If you like this video, put a like on it, subscribe to the Demwins Media YouTube channel, follow me at buildingthebench.substack.com, and we will be back for you later with more news that you need to see. Thanks for watching.